Brand new data that just dropped today shows that Switch 2 sales in Japan are down from their panic buying high for a third week in a row. You see, when Nintendo raised the price of the Switch 2 in Japan, sales immediately plummeted from nearly 250,000 units in 1 week to just around 31,000. And at first that was easy to explain, right? People rushed out to buy the console before the price went up, and once that panic buying window ended, sales obviously came back down. But then the next week happened, and then the week after that happened, and now here we are 3 weeks later, and the Switch 2 still has not recovered. So the story today is not that Nintendo had one ugly week in Japan. The story is that the ugly week may have just exposed a much bigger problem, because if Switch 2 demand does not bounce back after the first major price increase, then Nintendo has to ask a very uncomfortable question. Was this just a temporary drop because of pulled forward demand, or did Nintendo just find the point where gamers started saying no, even in Japan? But here's where it gets even more interesting. Japan might only be the beginning, because Nintendo is preparing price increases in other regions later this year, and in one of those regions Nintendo is already making a very interesting move right before the higher price fully hits, and it involves Pokemon, which raises the real question behind this entire situation. Is Nintendo simply preparing a yet another normal Switch 2 bundle, or did Japan just scare Nintendo into changing the strategy before the same problem shows up somewhere else? So let's jump right in here, folks. This is the sales data that was just posted today. This is Famitsu sales from June 8th to June 14th. For those of you that don't know, Famitsu tracks physical software and hardware sales in Japan, and here we can see that last week the Switch 2 sold 25,793 units, which in a vacuum doesn't mean much, but if we take a look at the week prior to that, the first week of June, we'll see that the sales for the Switch 2 were 23,059, and the week before that was the May 25th to May 31st week, and this was the first week that the Switch 2 saw a higher price in Japan. And as we can see here, the Switch 2 unit sales were 31,751, and we reported on this previously on the channel. Now real quick, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who's been liking my most recent videos and using the new hype feature. It really helps out a ton, and as a thank you, I'm going to share with you guys a cute picture of Tiger wearing a little frog hat. We took this picture last night. It was very adorable, so thank you so much for liking, using the new hype feature, and subscribing to the channel. If you want more Tiger pictures, then perhaps go ahead and like this video as well. This is the official notice regarding price revisions from Nintendo, and we can see that this was posted on May 8th, and it says that the revisions in Japan start on May 25th. So for the last 3 weeks, what we can see is that the sales for the Switch 2 have settled in around 23 to 31,000 units, 26k being a pretty solid middle ground there. And so then the question becomes, okay, well, how did the Switch 2 sell after the announcement from Nintendo? And more importantly, how was the Switch 2 selling before the announcement even happened? Well, here we can see the sales data from May 18th to May 24th, and you'll notice that the Switch 2 sold 247,000 units, nearly 250,000 units in a single week. And the brand new game on the block that week was Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which only sold 39,000 physical copies. And if we look at the week before that, this was the first full week since the May 8th announcement from Nintendo, you'll see that they sold again 218,000 units. So it's pretty obvious what this data is showing, right? We know Nintendo announced the price increase on May 8th. The price was going up by about 10,000 yen in Japan, which is like $60 or something like that. And the first 2 full weeks immediately after that, we see that unit sales absolutely skyrocket. And then the 3 weeks after the price increase, the unit sales are dramatically lower. But the real question is, well, how was the Switch 2 selling before they announced the price increase, right? Did the Switch 2 just come back down to exactly where it was selling prior to the price increase? And luckily that data is also readily available. The Famitsu sales from April 20th through April 26th show that the Switch 2 sold about 46,000 units. The week before that, we'll see that the Switch 2 sold about 44,000 units, and the week before that we'll see that the Switch 2 sold about 52,000 units. Okay, so now the discussion is much more interesting, right? For the 3 weeks before Nintendo made their announcement, we saw the Switch was selling about 45 to 50,000 units per week. Then we saw all of the panic buying for about 2 to 3 weeks in total, because not only was there the announcement, there was also Golden Week in Japan, which historically is a big week for console sales because lots of people are off work. It's kind of like a little break period. And now we see for 3 weeks in a row, the unit sales have normalized at a level that is noticeably lower than even the unit sales per week prior to the price hike announcement. In fact, the average weekly unit sales before the price announcement was about 47,000, and now that we've had 3 weeks of sales data after the announcement, the average is about 27,000, and that is a 42.5% decrease in unit sales from before the price increase to after the price increase. So is it too early to say that the price increase of the Switch 2 in Japan has had an obviously negative impact on the weekly unit sales? Well, I'm not really so sure, right? Because, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, all right, are they sold out, right? Like, is Japan just sold out of Switch 2s? Do they just not have any, and that's why they're not selling any more units? And the answer is no. Actually, the supply of Switch 2 in Japan has been pretty well stocked since about mid-December 2025. There were some stores around that panic buying period that did have lower inventory because demand surged in a very short amount of time, but that was really just a temporary situation. It's not like there was no Switch 2s left. They just hadn't hit the stores yet. They're already manufactured, they're already there, they're already in Japan. And in fact, supply was actually so high for some models of the Switch 2 in Japan that people were actually buying them in bulk, and some retailers actually had to have some restrictions on how many you could actually buy. Now, this was again back at the beginning of May, right when they announced the price increase, but my point is that there's no evidence to show that the Switch 2 is sold out. That's clearly not what's happening here. Supply constraints for the Switch 2 haven't been a thing for a few months at this point. So then the other question is like, okay, well, are we still seeing the effects of demand being pulled forward? And I think that that is very reasonable. Right now, Star Fox hasn't come out yet, and we know Ocarina of Time is coming out at some point this year, I guess. But really, at this point, we're in a little bit of a lull period where there's actually no reason to buy a Switch 2 at this exact moment in time. And again, selling 250,000 units every single week back to back to back, that's a tremendous amount of demand that is pulled forward. And so we do actually have to wait a few more weeks to really see what the normalization level is of Switch 2 unit sales in Japan before we can definitively say that yes, the price increase has affected the sales of the console. But even still, let's just like sit back and think about this for a second, right? Like, is it logical that a console that goes up in price would sell fewer of them, right? Well, I don't know, like what happens to cookies when the price goes up? Like, some customers just decide that it's not worth it, right? You don't need cookies. You're not going to die if you don't have cookies, right? It's a purely optional expense, and so is entertainment, right? Just like the Switch 2, you don't actually need one, right? Especially because we haven't seen the big three land on Switch 2 yet. We don't have a brand new Zelda, and there's not one announced. There's just the remake, which is exciting, but it's nothing new. We don't have a new 3D Mario, and it's not announced, and we don't have a new generation of Pokemon game, which is announced, but it's not coming until probably at least September of 2027. So we're still like a year away, right? So while I think technically we'll have to wait a few more weeks to say conclusively that the higher price has led to lower demand, I think now that we're 3 weeks out, I think that the pattern is really starting to show here. And if I were Nintendo, I would start to be getting a little bit nervous here, because this is going to be an even bigger problem when Nintendo increases the price in other regions later this year. We know for sure, according to Nintendo's announcement, that the price of the Switch 2 in the United States is going up $50. It's also going up 50 Canadian dollars as well, which by the way is insane. $680 in Canada, bro. Like, oh my god. And of course, the Switch 2 is also going up by 30 euros in Europe. And Europe as a region is going to be one to watch for the Switch 2 sales throughout the rest of this year, because while the Switch 2 has sold super well overall since launch in pretty much every region, it's no secret, and we've been reporting here on the channel, that in Western markets, Switch 2 demand has actually softened probably a lot more than Nintendo or really anybody thought, especially during the holiday season. And in the United States, Switch 2 sales were dramatically lower than anybody thought, which is why we saw every retailer in America have a discount on the Switch 2 just 6 months after it landed on the market that is absolutely unheard of in the gaming industry, especially at a time where console prices are actually going up, not down. I mean, really think about that for a second. A brand new Nintendo console, 6 months old, had a price reduction for holiday season, peak demand holiday season, while everyone else was raising prices. Like, that is, you don't have 5 coincidences in a row that all point in the same direction, right? Like, that's just, that is, I'm sorry, there's no logical argument for that. The answer is that demand was lower than everyone thought, right? So now that the price is going up in Western markets and especially in Europe, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see that just a day ago it was announced that the Switch 2 Pokemon Pokopia bundle was announced for Europe. The bundle will launch on July 2nd for £429 or 500 euros and includes a standard Switch 2 console with a digital copy of Pokemon Pokopia. And then here we can see a picture of the box. All right, so what we know for sure is that this bundle is kind of a last minute thing, right? I mean, it would make sense logically that if Nintendo knew that Pokemon Pokopia was going to be the smash hit that it was going to be, this bundle would have launched alongside Pokemon Pokopia, right? I mean, that is the most logical outcome. I don't think anybody would debate that, right? Like, if they knew this was a smash hit, they would have put this out on day one to maximize Switch 2 unit sales, right? You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. But anyway, now that they know that Pokemon Pokopia is well received and everyone loves the game, they're going ahead and releasing a bundle for it at the beginning of July. So they are rushing this thing out before they have the price hike in September. Okay, so they'll have all of July and all of August to move as many Switch 2 units as they can in Europe before the price increase occurs. That is also the summertime sales period, and I think it's reasonable that they probably have a ton of units that they want to move, and they want to move them as soon as possible. And then on top of that, this was reported about 2 weeks ago, but Europe is getting a superior Switch 2 model, Nintendo confirms. The new Switch 2 will have replaceable batteries to comply with the EU's right to repair laws. Now, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that they have to comply with Europe's rules by February 18th, sometime in February of 2027. So once again, when we look at this Pokopia bundle, I think one could reason that they've got a lot of this current model of Switch 2 that will not be compliant moving forward, and so they want to get rid of them. They want to sell as many as possible, and it's going to be harder to do that once the price increases in September. So when do you move them? You move them before September, and what better game than Pokopia? And I asked that question sort of tongue-in-cheek because there actually isn't a better game than Pokopia to do this, which is kind of awkward because the game is already old. This came out back in March, you guys. But as I've said time and time again on this channel, there isn't a game in the near future for the Switch 2 that's going to move a ton of units, especially not before September. We have Ocarina of Time coming out at some point this year, and if that were coming out before September, then I would assume we would know about it by now because it's already June 18th. So I think that that release window is out of the question. I could be wrong there, but beyond that, they've got what? Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World, and Pokemon Legends EA, and they've already sold out of the Legends EA bundle. And also Pokopia is just the better Pokemon game between Pokemon Pokopia and Legends EA. I think it's obvious, right? Everyone knows Pokopia is reviewing better and has much more praise amongst the community, right? No one's even talking about Legends EA now that Champions is out, and that's a free mobile game for Pokemon, by the way. But they can't go back to the Mario Kart World bundle. They've already sold out of those, and they're done with that, right? Everybody who wanted a Mario Kart World bundle at the current price point already bought one, right? So Pokopia is their only choice here, which is, again, it's a little awkward because the game's a little bit older. And by the way, not to state the obvious, but like, this is the most lazy bundle I've ever seen. And I really, like, I don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking here, but like, there's actually no reason to buy this bundle other than the box art looking different than a regular bundle. I guess technically Pokemon Pokopia might be a little cheaper because it's bundled, but you only get a digital code to download Pokopia. You don't even get the box with the game key card, which is like saying something, right? Like, even the key card is ridiculous. Like, all game key cards are just ridiculous. That whole idea of that sucks. But like, you don't even get this shitty version of Pokemon Pokopia. You get the non-existent non-existent one of just a code on a piece of paper, and the console itself is not designed like a Pokemon special limited edition. We saw this with all the 3DS models and even with some Switch models. Like, they had special designs of the consoles to celebrate those respective franchises and give the fans of those franchises something cool and unique to buy. With this, it's just the base model. There's nothing special about this at all other than the cardboard looks different, which, like, even if all they did was include the light purple and light green Joy-Cons, you could at least say, like, okay, the purple Joy-Con is like, yeah, ditto's purple, so it makes sense. It's a little bit more on theme, and even this would have been lazy, but at least it's different than the base model. And like, they didn't even do that. There's nothing special about the console. You don't get the game key card. You get nothing besides prettier cardboard, which is like, man, it is just so unfortunate, because Nintendo, they used to be so great with limited edition consoles, and they just do not care anymore, and it's abundantly obvious. And the only people that are affected by that are the diehard fans of Nintendo who would love to spend more money on another special console, but they're not even getting that offer, which I guess in today's climate of just scalping everything, I guess I can't be too upset, because the thing would just get scalped anyway, and like, I'd rather not see scalpers get more money in their pockets. But again, I just can't help but notice how incredibly lazy this bundle is, and that's been the pattern with Switch 2 bundles. Same thing with the Mario Kart World bundle, same thing with the Legends EA bundle. It's just a base model with prettier cardboard on the outside, and lots of people just throw the cardboard out. And really, if we just zoom out for a moment, Nintendo owes so much of its success to the popularity of Pokemon. I mean, when they needed to move units in the holiday season, Legends EA bundle. When they need to move units in Europe before the price increase, Pokopia bundle. The Pokemon franchise is doing like all of the heavy lifting while we wait for the actual Nintendo exclusives, a new 3D Mario and a new Legend of Zelda. Like, really, Pokemon and Mario Kart World are like the two main pillars holding up the Switch 2 right now. Donkey Kong Bonanza at a comfortable third, I suppose, but like, man, I don't know what deal Pokemon and Nintendo have together. I know that Nintendo is part owner of the Pokemon company, but like, dude, Pokemon is just, it's just doing all the heavy lifting. It's kind of crazy. They just keep relying on this one franchise while everyone's sitting around like, dude, I want to play a new Mario game. And speaking of a new Mario game, I saw this article posted 2 days ago, and it really kind of got me a little bit upset, okay? And I'm curious to know what you guys think, so feel free to tell me in the comments below. But this article says, after Ocarina of Time and Star Fox, Switch 2's next N64 remake feels obvious. And I'm gonna give you guys a second to just think about, okay, what do you think this article is gonna say? What game comes to mind for you that you think they're going to talk about here, okay? For as much as the Switch 2 still needs its big moment, I didn't expect so much of its early lifespan to revolve around the N64. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is returning in 2026 as a Switch 2 remake, and Star Fox brings Star Fox 64 back on June 25th, 2026 with enhanced visuals, new game modes, and online multiplayer. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Nintendo had more classic N64 revivals in mind. When the most recent Nintendo Direct gave us a more extensive look at the Star Fox 64 remake and finally confirmed the long-rumored Ocarina of Time remake with a brief teaser, it left a new Super Mario announcement out of the conversation, making this the perfect time to start thinking about one of the N64's other most beloved classics. Nintendo doesn't need to stop at Zelda and Star Fox if it's already treating that era like a major Switch 2 selling point. The next obvious candidate is none other than Mario 64. I, like many others, don't think of Super Mario 64 as just one among many great N64 games. Rather, it's difficult to deny it was the game the N64's legacy was built on. According to Nintendo's life-to-date sales data, the N64 eventually reached 32.93 million hardware units and 225 million software units sold, and considering it was the best-selling game on the console, even selling over 4 million units more than Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64 was undoubtedly one of the main reasons for that. I know Ocarina of Time is usually treated as the N64's most sacred game, and as a massive Zelda fan who got to experience it in its heyday, I fully understand why. I also know Star Fox 64 still has one of the cleanest arcade identities Nintendo has ever made. However, when I think about the N64 as a console, Super Mario 64 is the game that ushered both of those titles and many other greats in. And look, again, this article just like it drove me a little bit crazy, okay? Because here I am a year after the Switch 2 launch, and frankly, I'm pretty disappointed in the lineup of Switch 2 exclusives. I know that we've got Hyrule Warriors and Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World and Pokemon Pokopia. I get that, right? And of those games, I've played 3 of them extensively, and they're fine games. They're solid games, but none of them are the reason that I would point to and say that's why I'm getting a Switch 2. And with Winds and Waves in 2027, and also with me frankly not even really knowing if I'm going to buy those games, because I just no pun intended, but I don't buy it yet, right? Like, I need to see more from that game, more trailer footage. We need to know more, because honestly the last few Pokemon games have been subpar. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves, they have been. So I, as a consumer, am looking for a new 3D Mario experience and a new Zelda experience. And like, Ocarina of Time is going to be great, but let's not give Nintendo any ideas here, okay? And also, like, again, Super Mario 64 as a remake would be great, but like, can we do all of the nostalgia fanfare after you give people a real reason to spend $550 on your console? Like, how many times in a row can you cash in on just nostalgia before people start actually expecting effort out of Nintendo, right? Like, let's not play this game where we're gonna pretend like Super Mario 64 is what everybody wants out of the Switch 2. Like, everyone will buy it, everyone will like it, but it's not why people are buying a Switch 2. So please, can we just press the brakes? Just like, let's pause for a second on the remastering all this stuff from the 90s and give us an actual new experience for the 2020s. Is that so much to ask for the brand new console, that we have a brand new experience? Can we not start asking Nintendo for Super Mario 64? There's like 3 ways to play that game on the Switch 2 already. And if I'm being honest, okay, I played Mario 64 back in December myself. I just decided to play it again, and yes, it's aged a little bit rough, but it's aged incredibly well in my opinion compared to other games of that era. There's a reason why it's still so popular. There's a reason why they could throw it in the 3D All-Stars bundle and it sells well. There's a reason why it's one of the most popular speedrunning games of all time. It's because it actually did age pretty well. It's not perfect, right? Like, I prefer a free movement camera when I'm playing a 3D platformer, right? Like, but it's still really good, especially for its time. So I personally would just please pump the brakes on asking Nintendo for more N64 games, bro. Like, can we please get a new experience of a franchise that we really care about? Not a spin-off, not like, oh, but Hyrule Warriors. Like, bro, no one's buying Hyrule Warriors, buddy. Okay, we could try to force it to be a thing, but it's not a thing. Same thing with Yoshi. You can't force it to be a thing, okay? People just don't want, the game is for very, very small kids. It's a very short game. Kirby Air Riders, very niche. Okay, we've got tons of niche games. All the niche communities are happy, but what about the casual gamer? They're still waiting on that game. Anyway, I know I just went off on a tangent, but I'm really curious to see if the Switch 2 sales eventually normalize in Japan. But right now the trend looks like sales are still down for 3 weeks in a row, and that spells trouble for their price increases in the Western markets, because like we saw back during holiday, without a big franchise that's popular in Western markets, it's going to be tough for the Western market to swallow this newer, higher price, especially because there's not one of those games coming down the pipeline. And frankly, I would not be surprised if you just wait until Cyber Monday this year. I bet they're going to lower the price again back to what the launch price was, right? And that's what they're going to do, and that's going to be the funny part, right? Everyone's going to be like, oh my god, the Switch 2 got a price drop by $50, right? And it's going to go from $550 down to $500 for the bundle, and it's like, that's the launch price, right? So everyone's gonna, we're 5 months out, I'm gonna call it now though, okay? We're gonna see that price drop, everyone's gonna freak out, and it's just gonna be the launch price. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'm wrong, but guys, if you made it this far into the video, please consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton. And you might think you're subscribed because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.